Welcome back to the Endeavors AI podcast. I'm Colin McKee, founders of Endeavors AI, a show that talks about becoming AI becoming a force multiplier for firms willing to move on it. My guest today is Eric Hulett, 30 years a lawyer, a former tax accountant, and the COO of Robles Jr Law, a veteran-founded personal injury firm out of Fort Worth, Texas. Eric, thanks for making the time. Thanks for the patience. We took a couple swings at this and finally got it.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. First, yeah, you're not a Texan, I can tell. It's Robles Jr Law. Our Spanish speakers will know the difference. But so just a little quick quick
No,
edit
I
there.
appreciate the correction. Should have known that one better. So let's get to know you, sir. You've described yourself kind of a unique term as a platypus in your role because you're an accountant, marketer, operator, and a closer. So walk me through how you wind up getting yourself in this kind of job position.
Like a lot of people by necessity. I mean, I did start as a tax lawyer, to be precise. The accounting part just kind of came with it. I used to be a pension accountant. I was a pension consultant. Then I went to law school because I was working for Arthur Andersen. I wanted the letters after my name, and it was going to be easier for me to be a JD than a CPA, oddly enough. And so I went to law school, and I was a pension lawyer for a few years with the big guys. And that's kind of what led to the tax lawyering, because that obviously was part of it, a lot of labor as well. Then I ended up in a situation where I had to find another job because I had a boss who lied about who was doing all the work. She sold the company and it was me, but she didn't tell anybody. Her ego wouldn't let her. And I was at a salary level where when you get fired, it's really hard to find another job. They tend to not believe you if you say it wasn't me, it was them, because we've all heard that and it's never been true, but this actually was true. So it does happen. And I started as a family lawyer, and then I ended up in personal injury. I kind of fell in love with it. It's also when I found out I actually could talk to people. I could convince them of the need for my services. And, actually kind of found a little niche there where I was able to kind of bond with these people in distress. And so then the evolution to here, where I wanted to get away from being tied to the desk, like most lawyers are, or being tied to the courtroom, has the same effect, where I could kind of be anywhere. I think the kids call it a digital nomad. I can kind of work wherever I want to, as long as I've got, internet and a phone, which literally is pretty much anywhere on the face of the earth now. I mean, with satellite phones, it's cheap as they are, it really is anywhere. Old enough to remember when sat phones were like $5 a minute. And, now it's nothing. It's just a slightly more expensive cell phone. And so that's kind of led to my description as a platypus, because my job here is I don't do so much of the lawyering. I'm in charge of the operating of the firm as a company, and I also handle a ton of the marketing. And so you don't have too many CFOs/CMOs. And, obviously smaller firms, that's possible. Meta certainly wouldn't hire one person to do both jobs, but it'd be too big a job. But for us, it works for now. And I enjoy the heck out of it, but it is definitely something I kind of created. You're not going to find this job category on Indeed for sure.
So you said as far as working with Joe that you more so are the face to the industry and Joe is the face to the world. So what is
Yes,
the vision actually?
that's my summary. So I'm the one that evaluates, because we get bombarded with offers, and being a startup, we're 3 years old. We do need some of the products that are being pitched to us. We don't need all of them, and we don't need 8 different providers. So it fell to me, and I kind of had to take this from Joe because he wanted to do it till he realized what a time suck it was. And I go, no, this is a big time commitment. It needs to be done, but we don't need you spending, 10 hours a week doing this, listening to pitches. And I go, plus at this point, I've listened to so many pitches, I can kind of cut through them pretty quick. And I know when, for instance, when they're, pitching SEO to me and they're like, oh, we're going to get you on page 1. No, you're not. It doesn't work that way. I don't have to be an expert to know these guys spending millions of dollars a month get way too many unique eyeballs, which are basically IP addresses, looking at them every month, for me to be naturally, organically on page 1. There are some tricks to get you there, and like geo limiting is different, but I'm just saying in general, I'm like, those guys I could dispense with in 5 minutes, where Joe would be like, oh, that sounds great. I'm like, no, that's a waste of time. We can't do that. So, and I've done that, and that's worked well. But he's done really well being, because of his background, being Hispanic, being disabled, but, living in a part of Fort Worth where there are no other lawyers. It's worked really well for us in just the old fashioned way of marketing from lawyers back, before marketing was legal, which is you just made a name for yourself in the community and attracted people that way. And that's worked really well for
So as far as the firm itself, who do you serve? Like, what's the mission there for Robles Jr.?
we're primarily after the Hispanic and especially the Spanish speaking market in the personal injury space. I mean, we will take anybody and our client list looks like that, but it definitely skews heavily towards Hispanics and Spanish speakers.
Just because the market's there and you guys are primed to serve it well, you know?
Yeah. And we have, obviously, Hispanic leader and, you know, we're not pretending about it. I do like to kid him. I speak a little better Spanish than he does, but the rest of our staff is all fully fluent. So it's an easy thing for us to do. We're not using Google Translate to try and talk to clients, which is pretty maddening for both parties, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, they appreciate that. So on the topic of AI, because that's the title of my show, you've been running AI in the firm for a good while, right?
Yeah, we're
And
coming on almost 2 years. We've had some form of AI in the firm, which for law firms is, especially smaller ones, is fairly quick adopters. I mean, I go to the conferences and they're still saying, "Hurry up and adopt AI." I'm like, "Well, we already did that.
right.
We're just trying to figure out which of the pieces and how to put the Lego set together to make the best thing for
So why do
us."
you think you were an early adopter? You were comfortable in doing it when it was, kind of a scary place for a lot of smaller firms. What made you dive in?
I mean, it's a very technical term. Joe and I are geeky as shit. We're geeks. I love technology. I've always loved technology. I'm old enough to remember when computers, PCs became, prevalent. And that was not when I was in high school, it's when I was in college. Weirdly enough, I went to school with Michael Dell. But it's, so I've always known it's pretty easy to see it's the future. And I think fighting it is just kind of futile. And so it was pretty obvious to see this is here, it's coming, embrace it or get run over. And Joe and I both kind of knew that from the get go. It was just, okay, we know we need it, but which one? Because, 2 years ago, there's already probably 100 offerings out there in various forms. And now it feels like there's 10 times that.
And then there'll be a little bit of consolidation, and then that'll expand and contract, expand and contract. As far as AI adoption, you made a point that stuck with me, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. You said that a 50 lawyer, 400 staff member firm looks at AI adoption as this is going to be 2 months of moving backwards before I have any ability to go forward. And talk me through, like, what's the advantage of your firm as opposed to that when it comes to AI adoption?
It really is the efficiency, as the military would call it, the force multiplier. It's one person can now do what it would take us 1.5 to 2 people to do. And on a small firm, you see those almost instant returns. For us, the caseload you know, we're running with 5 people now, and this caseload 3 years ago would have taken me 8 people minimal. And that's with us not really fully utilizing it yet because there is a learning curve. There's certainly resistance within your employees because they're convinced this is what's going to put them out of work. And what most employers like we have done is said, no, it is going to keep us from hiring the next person, but it's not going to make us get rid of you. And because it's the only way you can do it without having a revolt. But I've heard that from giant law firms with 200 employees, and he goes, I'm probably going to fire 70 people before I need to hire somebody, or not necessarily fire, but lose seven. Attrition's going to take 70 people before I have to even think about hiring somebody. That's how much efficiency is being built in with this AI stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, there's still a lot of fear in that, and there is truth to it because there are going to be some jobs that are obsolete that we can think back 20 years ago, and those jobs don't
Well,
exist.
and from
Right.
my perspective, and I got a kid coming out of college now, this is one of the times that the technology revolution is destroying white collar jobs. It's not really affecting blue collar,
Right.
not in the way the first adaptation of computers, because you got rid of all these file clerks and everything else like that, from profession I was in, or obviously industrial revolution, which wiped out tons of semi-skilled labor jobs. But this is, as I told my kid, I go, if you're applying for any job that has the word analyst in the title, that job's going away because the computer's just better than you.
So as far as technology, can you name kind of your technology stack, what you're using for what as far as
Sure,
work?
sure. I'll kind of go from entry to exit. Initially we use some, custom crafted AI agents on our intake. that actually Joe has done himself. The nice thing is now you don't have to be a coder. If you've got an idea, AI will help you code. So and so he's built some AI agents to help us with our intake. So once we put in the base stuff we get from the first phone call, it automatically starts emailing the people who need to contact them, set up the file, that kind of thing. Then also with that, we're using Foundation AI to handle our incoming emails. And it reads your emails, figures out where it needs to go, saves it where it needs to be, and emails who needs to know about it. And also updates our case management software full notes about we got this piece of information and it's here, it's been saved. They just announced now that they can also do click-throughs. So if someone sends you a link, they can get through. Now, if it's a HIPAA secured link, they probably can't because the password has to be in a separate location. So I'm not sure they're there yet, but on the easy ones, like what I get from most insurance companies, it just says to click here to get it so that they can track which IP address pulled it. It will do that, which is nice. And they rolled that out in the last 2 weeks. So that's a lot of stuff is still evolving. Then our main case management support and our demand writing is done with EvenUp. And that's kind of a soup to nuts thing. And they keep rolling stuff out. Their newest module is a conversation module to make phone calls and stuff for you. We haven't implemented that yet, but we probably will. One thing I don't want to implement that is out there is a bunch of them will do intake and take the phone calls. I think for the big guys that get hundreds of phone calls a day, it makes all the sense in the world. But for us in our marketing, because we get so few phone calls, I think that personal touch really still has a value. The soft skills is a buzzword they keep throwing out there. Because I know from doing this for decades, hiring a lawyer is not a logical decision for normal people. It is for giant companies. It's purely emotional. They're always at one of the low parts in their life if you're hiring a lawyer, whether you're going through a divorce or dealing with grandma's will or you're in a car accident. You're not calling the lawyer because it's a good day. And so, you get used to that. I mean, no one's ever happy to talk to me. And it's when you're younger, it's a little tough at first. At this point, I've got the distance. It's okay. But really is kind of the way it goes, And so, and then I did overlook one other product we're using is Tavern. We're using them to get medical records. And that's one place where there's a huge savings in time because when you're dealing with big, especially county hospitals, they're notoriously bad because there's just no threat for them. You can read the rules and there are punishments for not getting records to people in time, but no county judge is going to charge the county hospital a fine for not getting records done because they know the county hospital is already broke and it's coming from the same coffer. So they're just not going to do it. They'll never say they're not going to do it. I just know practically they just don't. They just give them time after time, and it's not worth us wasting our time to go, file an action in the court to try and get the fees and say, well, you didn't do this. And you're like, well, they meant to, and so you all kind of know that instinctively. So, but the AI just hounding them, it's kind of the squeaky wheel thing. Eventually you get our records because they're just tired of us calling them every day, but it's not us. It's the computer, it's AI, that is one of the beauties. And it's also someone I don't care if I take off, because basically screaming at City Hall, who cares? They get screamed at all the time. They don't get mad about it, and where you have to be careful when you set these things up and you're calling clients or something like that, you're not harassing them. And they're like, why do you keep calling? That there's a sweet spot between why do you keep calling me and why do you never call me? And, kind of figured that out. And, and a lot of times we have little notes and stuff about that, which is a little harder to program into an AI system, which likes to do it on a set schedule. But I'm sure that will improve over time.
So give me one of your best war stories. I like to hear when things don't work as well as, hearing the positive aspects of it. Is there anything that while you were tinkering around with it, it broke and what did you do to fix it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like everybody who's an early adopter of AI, especially in the legal space, they have a cute word for it is hallucinations, which is when AI makes shit up. And the problem is it makes shit up very convincingly. So we had a demand and it put a site in it. And in the site, fortunately in PI, the sites we use tend to not change much. It's not a real dynamic area of the law. There's a new case we all know about. And it cited this case I hadn't heard. So I click through it and it appears to be a case. And then I get on, my actual legal software and I look for it and realize it doesn't exist. So it's not that it made one up, it even created something that looked like it. And I mean, and that's been something that's AI's failings has been is the more things are said has a certain level of credibility. And we also know the internet can be an echo chamber where even if it's crazy, if it's said enough, it seems to gain traction. And, and it's not real good at it's getting better, but initially it wasn't really good at evaluating sources, which is something they spent a lot of time teaching us in law school. You can trust this, you can kind of trust this, you don't ever trust this. And it just kind of was like treated everything the same. And it's gotten better at that, but it still has a ways to go. And so that's the fear. And we've seen all the horror stories, if you watch the papers at all, of lawyers getting yelled at for submitting briefs that they clearly never proofread, and you know the computer went a little crazy. And it's and like I said, I use that also with intake, because sometimes I'll combine some stories into one. They just kind of build empathy. I'm not lying, I'm just condensing. And but if you tell that to AI, it's just told basically I make stuff up, and it doesn't know how to evaluate big lies and little lies, and kind of white lies and the ones that are really dangerous. And that's where you really have to watch it, because you give it creativity and it goes a little nuts. Because, saying there's an elephant in the room, you know, and, you're using allegory, and it goes, oh, there were 10,000 elephants in the room. What's the
Right.
difference? It really wasn't one. So why not 10,000? Kind of use a silly example of how it can be very extreme.
Yep. Yep. And you were telling me another story where you were dealing with some kind of confusion and you got hacked at the same time. It was like a double whammy. I'm trying to think back and you fill in the blanks I'm having about that story.
Yeah, we did. I mean, like everybody, we were evidently Dallas was under cyber attack. A lot of private firms were having that issue at the same time, and we can't see how they got in. They got in through my email. So, and I'm one of the people that teaches people how not to get. So it truly can happen to anybody. Not that I'm perfect by any means, but if I don't recognize the sender, I don't click through. I don't put in my own information unless it's someone I deal with all the time or I reach out to them. And so it created you know, lost 2-3 days of work because we just had to shut everybody down. Like, we don't know what's going on. We can't do anything right now until we know we've got our arms around it. And so, and that's AI being used against us. There's no two ways. So it's not a person doing that. But now, where we used to have passwords where we could say, oh, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to crack, they can crack pretty much anything in 2 or 3 days, because they can make something like billions of guesses a second or something like that. So it's, unless you've got a 32-letter symbol number combination password, and even that's going to buy you a week. I mean, it's kind of, maybe I'm a bit of a defeatist. I'm like, it's not if they hack me, but when. It's just like I've personally my identity's been stolen 3 times, but I'm always watching it. So I just shut it down when it obviously happens. And I think that's kind of all you can do here. I don't think security exists anymore. My analogy, I view the internet like a highway. It's dangerous, but you got to use it.
Yep. Yep. But you don't have to use it all the time, you
No,
know?
you could choose, and sometimes the side streets are going to be a better way to go, but inevitably you're going to use it. And, as someone who lives in a big city, I'm probably going to use it every day. And so that's one of my analogies I actually like, because it really is that way. Especially doing what I do with car wrecks, the highway is a dangerous place.
Mhm.
That's where the nasty wrecks happen. They don't happen on side streets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, to keep the analogy going, we talked about AI policy. So, the highway's got rules of the road that you've got to abide by. If not, you break them, you have consequences. And it was a funny response. You're like, we're lawyers. We don't write policy until it's too late,
But yeah, it's like the cobbler
which
doesn't
is a
have
funny
shoes.
thing to say, but
Yeah,
at the same
it's,
time,
we tell everybody what to do and we assume we know it. And then, and of course, we ran all the training out to make sure everybody knew, because we'd actually gotten hacked 2 weeks before that, where someone clicked on something they weren't supposed to. The classic, but it was of course the lowest paid person in the entire company. They're going to go after the weak link. Well, they go after every link. You're going to find what the weak link is. And, she didn't know. It's before this, she had, worked in fast food. So she never worked in a professional environment where there was, kind of anything worth stealing. Hacking your local McDonald's really isn't going to change anything. But here we do. And, we got lots of, you know, protected health information and social security numbers and all this demographic data that everybody loves because we know most valuable commodity now is friggin' information. I mean, we're definitely fully in the information society. And so it's, so we've now rolled out the training. We will revisit it every 6 months as we get aware of, or sooner if we see something really clever. I mean, that's also the thing with AI is I've always gotten fake things like you need to pay this bill or whatever, and they're pretty obvious. They're really good now.
Hmm.
I mean, my fake pay your HBO bill versus actually I'll use the real one Disney Plus bill. The only reason I know it's fake is I get Disney Plus for free with my cell phone. I don't pay a bill, but it looks exactly like when I did pay Disney Plus.
Hmm.
I mean, it's because most people I don't have my account number memorized, which would be the only way I'd catch them. Because everything else about me is out there. It's been out there forever. So they have my full name, they have the right address, all that kind of stuff. But you know, they don't have the account number because I don't even know what it is. But I only got saved because it's only really easy to spot because it's not a bill I pay.
Right. So if there's a firm leader out there, and our audience generally is small and medium sized firms, so most likely in the audience, and they're looking to get started with this technology, what kind of advice would you give them?
Definitely do it. I mean, especially in the world of personal injury or where you have to do demands and litigation, there's very specific stuff that will help you with drafting. And that's where we started. The very first thing we did was the demand product from Even Up. And it was just doing demands, but it's generating demand in 30 minutes that would take me, as someone knows what I'm doing, I think 4 hours to do right, to collect all the medical records and cross reference them and write up the summary. It still needs editing, I think, but I have some pride in authorship. But for our people that don't write very well, it's a game changer because it comes out professionally written. The tone could be a little stilted, but I'd rather have it accurate and stilted versus I'd get it and go, I'm just going to rewrite this. It's not worth editing. And I've had that happen with some case managers who just weren't good writers. Great case managers weren't good writers. And, I'm sure people have that too. They know who can write and who can't, but AI lets everybody write. You're only going to know the difference when they get on the phone. And people are going to go, you didn't write that, did you? And I would suggest don't lie about it. Go, yeah, I definitely had help.
Yeah, let it draft it for me, and I put in my personal touches. That's all you can really expect. And I mean, for that matter, use the tool, use it, but check it, trust but verify.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's not a substitute. I think I heard somebody say that. And I think that's a great way to put it. And if you use it as a substitute, it will bite you.
Yep, 100%. And then, so as we close it up, looking back to, let's say, you 2 years ago, if you could have known anything then that you know now, implementing the systems that you did, what do you think that you'd want to go back? What piece of
For,
knowledge to go back?
well, it reminds me of a seminar session where the guy's like, hire people before you need them. I'd say use it before you need it. The problem is that assumes unlimited money. And so do it as fast as you can afford. And like I said, I'd start with, you know, don't try to do the whole thing. Do it in bite-sized pieces. Get comfortable with it. Figure out it is different. All of these overlay slightly differently. They all work with what you have, but there's overlays. They're usually hidden behind it, but all of a sudden you have new buttons that appear or new drop downs in your otherwise, normal web page. But do it as soon as you can because it's not going away. It's some leaders are definitely showing up already in the stuff that, there are lots of people that are good, but for me, I'd like going with the one that I know is going to be around because, like you alluded to earlier, there's going to be consolidation here. There's too many players, as there are any new tech. I mean, look at how many web search engines there were at the start of the internet, and now we're down to basically one. There are some others exist, but you'd be hard pressed. Yeah, I mean, Yahoo still exists, but who uses it? Yeah, and that's going to happen too. And and if you have to switch platforms, then you're going to go through this kind of implementation pain more than once. And I don't like doing that. So I used a little hesitancy and it did the bite size to see who it was. And, but I got lucky. Most everybody we've adopted. We've stayed. We've replaced one, and but other than that, it's worked pretty well. But yeah, the sooner the better.
Get after it, be disciplined, don't be scatterbrained
Yeah,
and,
but
you know,
don't break yourself. Don't financially ruin yourself to do it.
right, right.
That's easy to do because all this seems fabulous, and it's kind of like a buffet. You take one of everything, you can't eat it all. It's not going to happen. You wasted a bunch. You have to be careful there because it's easy to waste money on this stuff. And and also know you can negotiate every price. Most lawyers know that, but it's always worth remind them because it's what I was initially offered, and kind of like buying a car. I walked away twice, and then all of a sudden, wow, I got a whole different level of deals.
Yeah, sound advice. 100%. Well, Eric, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Where can people learn more about you and the firm?
We are on the World Wide Web at Robles Jr Law, which is ROBLESJR and that is the easiest way to find us.
There you go. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. So for everyone watching, thanks. This has been Endeavors AI. We will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Colin.